cheaters on.
Woe is me, got to put my cheaters on.
Jeepers creepers, where'd you get those peepers?
Oh, those weepers,
How they hypnotize.
knock me out.
Where'd you get those eyes?
Where'd you get them?
Won't you put me wise?
Don't you jive me?
Pays to advertise.
Tell them about me.
Where did you get those eyes?
What is going on, guys? Here on this review I'm going to be covering the first installment of a pretty popular horror franchise, despite maybe a bit of its rocky history with its director and all. And this is obviously going to be both the first franchise that I am going to be having my ranking on for the channel. So it's going to be a very fun one and pretty simple, because there was literally about just like 2 films of this damn franchise that had 2 genuinely solid films, and then the last 2 were just, in more recent times, just like instant deadbeat, like just don't know what the fuck happened with those 2 films, but yeah, obviously I'll be covering those. I'll have those covered in my next couple reviews, obviously. And so yeah, this is a pretty iconic franchise. It's pretty memorable enough to a lot of people. It holds a lot of special memories for a few things about its icon and all that. And this is the kind of movie, talking about just the first film here of course, it's the kind of movie that does have a few scenes in the film where it is based on true events, like to do with something that happened in a bit of a like crime documentary, probably like a decade or so before the film. You know, that like the scene where there's like a body being dumped down like this pipe at one point in the film, that is based on a real crime event that happened, and that's obviously what like inspired those sort of scenes for this first film done by Victor Salva. And so of course, just letting you know about all of that. Let's get into this review, shall we? Kickstarting off on the positives. There is a very fun, simple premise. Yes, there's a decent amount of characters to roll with here. You know, it's not the film that relies on too many characters. You have, you know, just a few locals here and there at like a diner and all of that. You've got brother and sister, Darry and Trisha Jenner, done by Justin Long and Gina Phillips. And I'm sure you might just know that Justin Long was like, you know, popular for doing the voice of Alvin the Chipmunk. And obviously this is just 2 years after Galaxy Quest, doing the first Jeepers Creepers film. And it's definitely, undoubtedly, one of his best roles in his career, playing this character Darry Jenner in those first 2 Jeepers Creepers films. The only Jeepers Creepers films so far anyway, as I like to think. And before there was obviously Barbarian, Dodgeball, Drag Me to Hell. He obviously was doing Darry Jenner and Jeepers Creepers at the time, before those sort of films in his career. And let me tell you, Darry and Trisha, done by Justin and Gina, they are perfect here. They are a perfect example of what a brother and a sister should be.
Memories for shit.
No, it's not.
Uh-huh.
Nuh-uh.
Uh-huh.
Nuh-uh.
Uh-huh.
Nuh-uh.
Uh-huh.
Nuh-uh. Nuh-uh. Infinity.
Infinity squared.
They even talk about like something that happened 23 years ago with these 2 people that were at like going to prom night. It's called Kenny Brandon, Darla Cleaway. They talk about them at one point, like how they're on the same highway that they disappeared on. And obviously that whole disappearance thing that happened to them 23 years ago is, as you're probably guessing, something to do with the main antagonist, the Creeper. And they're like, obviously, to start off with, they're just on the lookout for license plates to like get these scores and all of that sort of stuff. And funnily enough, Darry himself just comes across one where he's like mistaking a 6 for a G and calling it like a license plate like Gay Fever or Gay Forever. And obviously this then leads to, you know, the arrival of the Creeper, how he comes up behind them in his own little vehicle, this freaky ass looking Frankenstein truck. And that Frankenstein looking truck of the Creepers is so damn iconic. It's literally a character within itself, the way it can just like speed up and make all those like sounds like a monster, like some dragon or whatever, a dinosaur, you know. It just makes all these weird horn sounds, that truck of the Creepers, and it's awesome. It even has ways of like, you know, containing all sorts of awesome weaponry that it uses, carries around with it time and time again. Like there's a battle axe, there's a pike, there's a throwing star, and all sorts of daggers that the Creeper uses and holds in that truck of his. And he just has like one of probably the best license plate you could ever see, and that is, of course, as I'm sure you might just know, that is the Be Eating You license plate. It's an awesome license plate. Be Eating You. Get it? Because the Creeper eats people, and there's the license plate that he goes with whenever he's driving around in that thing. So it's a pretty cool license plate that he's got with his truck, and obviously the truck itself holds all these sort of corpses and weaponry. Creeper has this pretty strange, effed up looking hideout with all these bodies and stuff scattered around the ceiling, you know, literally just decorated. And obviously it comes to a point where Darry and Trisha from Curiosity are obviously coming across the Creeper's little hideout where bodies are just like being stored there, and some have obviously been there probably for centuries. And it holds all sorts of things like a wooden table with a carving of the Creeper. It's pretty cool, you know. There's some creative stuff like that, and hilariously enough, you even get a bit of a cameo of Victor Salva as a corpse in that House of Pain hideout of the Creepers. And there's some pretty cool ideas with the cycle of the Creepers, like history of like how he, you know, how long he's been around for, and how he's obviously, you know, does he even age? All of that kind of stuff you kind of wonder about this figure. And there's crows that are tied to this thing because it's like literally some sort of winged demon that just literally like came straight out of hell. So it's pretty cool, the ideas on that. And Salva himself literally admits that this isn't the kind of film where he wants to make it a typical slasher like you get with Elm Street and whatnot. He definitely understands how to go classy and original with it, with like a bit of the 50s monster horror like Creature from Black Lagoon and all that. And so obviously that's exactly what he does. Jeepers Creepers is exactly that film. That's a original yet very intuitive monster horror flick. Very creature feature inspired, with all the details to the Creeper. And Jonathan Breck, the actor playing him, brings on a great performance, to the point where he really is the Creeper and no one could possibly top him in future. But yeah, the Creeper, and obviously the direction that Salva gives these first two movies specifically is fantastic, and the first film is a great start to that. Like, the Creeper looks fantastic, the Creeper, you know, is mysterious. We're not seeing too much of his face just yet because it's the start of all of that. And you get a good bit of scenery. There's a good bit of locations here throughout the film. Like, you've got a bit of, like, you know, there's northern Florida where this is done, and it's very exotic. It really suits the kind of atmosphere of where they're doing this sort of, what kind of atmosphere they're trying to create in this film. The atmosphere of northern Florida, how hot and exotic it is, and just the scenery, the landscape of all the farmlands, the meadows, the highway roads. It's done really well here. It's displayed well in those first two films specifically, and to follow with that, you've got even a bit of like vintage cars, which Salva really has an interest for, and obviously decided would really suit this film. Like, bringing in a bit of those vintage 50 cars really suits the theme, the atmosphere of this movie. And So does the soundtrack done by Bennett Salve. It's very orchestral sounding and it really suits that horror aesthetic. So Bennett Salve soundtrack is, you know, it really blends in well with the, you know, atmosphere of this movie. And following along with other characters besides Darien Trisher and the Creeper themselves, you've got a Sheriff Tubbs, done by Brandon Smith, who is like got some funny lines, like some memorable lines, but they are a little bit funny, like, "We got lights and phones out up here. I swear to God I will lock you up, Giselle. You are not making one goddamn bit of sense. Gone, what the hell are you talking about, gone?" And even Clue star Eileen Brennan is in here as a cat lady, as she's pretty much known as only, and she obviously just like has a small role that's to do with just like Darien Trisher coming across her when they're looking for help from someone. You've even got someone called Giselle, done by Patricia Belcher, who's like the effed up lady that has all these premonitions and doesn't understand why.
You have a torn shirt, right? And a bloody hand. Shirt's torn just above a small rose tattoo on your stomach.
Every 23rd spring, for 23 days, it gets to eat.
Obviously, the Creeper has a cycle where he comes back every 23rd spring for 23 days and gets to eat whoever and sustain himself from the different parts that he eats from people. And that kind of stuff about the Creeper is really cool. The effects on the Creeper as well to follow are really excellent, like the effects of the prosthesis on him and even the bodies is pretty excellent. This is a film that doesn't really over-rely on CGI. There's literally about 2-3 scenes in the film that have, you know, just the uses of CGI for like the Creeper sprouting out his wings and flying in mid-air with someone like Darry, for example, or even a cop. And those effects are really solid for their time. They're not terrible, they're pretty effective, and they work for that sort of early 2000s time period. The ending has always been one of the key parts of this film that's always made it stand out with being so, you know, like effective, so iconic, and it's always been the ending that stuck with us. That ending, I'm sure you all know it, I'm not going to spoil it too much, but that ending where there's like, you know, the Creeper taking his last little victim and doing what he does to him, that's always been the most iconic ending. You know, it's far from perfect. It's not a movie I would say is a masterpiece like John Carpenter's Halloween or anything, but it's still pretty excellent. And so, of course, you know, going on from there with the mixed, I would just only really point out from here that there was a part where, like, Darry and Trish were on a little urinal break, and we, like, see, I guess it's because it's a horror movie, and I get that, but, like, we see Darry, like, you know, peeing, and we see, like, he's pissed, and it's just a bit, we don't need that, because, just because it's a horror movie, you can't really, I guess you can get away with it, but you don't really need to throw that in there. Just something I would have to say about a scene of one of the parts in the film. And honestly, even the sequels had to like throw in scenes like similar to that, just because Darry did it in the first film. Don't understand why, really. And there is like some parts where maybe the effects on the corpses in this film is a little bit questionable. Like maybe it doesn't look perfect, but it does look a bit obvious how waxed or rubbery it looks. You know, some of the corpses in the House of Pain and stuff, they do look a bit rubbery and a bit like they could be laid out just a touch better, but yeah, they just look a bit questionable, that's all I'm saying. But they look fine, they're just not perfect in that way. And so, going on to the negatives, there was a deleted scene in this film where like the Creeper speaks apparently in English, and that's a part that is just like a bit of a no-no for me. Don't really like that the Creeper spoke at one point in this film, in a deleted scene of course.
She don't smell too good. There he is.
It's just like in full English, and like the Creeper's better than that. The Creeper should be more like speaking cryptically. He should be speaking in a completely different language that's not English at all, or just even not at all, because the Creeper feels too mysterious, too like ancient to actually talk English like that, and it didn't really need to be there. So thank God that that was a deleted scene anyway. And of course, yeah, that's just everything, people, on like all I had to address here for this first film. It's definitely a film that I would definitely recommend you check out. It's definitely a go-to for Halloween, so definitely help yourself with this film. And obviously, you know, keep liking, subscribing and commenting for more, and stay tuned for what's to come next.